Gentlelady from Hawaii, Mrs. Hanabusa, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. General Carpenter, you said certain things that have piqued my interest. First of all, you mentioned an amendment to a statute. I think it was section, is it 12304, or did I hear you correctly? You want to change in the statute? Was that the right section?
Yes, ma'am. It's Title 10, Section 12304.
And what exactly is the change that you're looking for?
The situation inside of the Army National Guard and the Army Reserve and the Air National Guard and Air Reserve right now is that we have no authority to involuntarily call our soldiers to duty unless it's a named operational, like Operation Iraqi Freedom or Operation Enduring Freedom. If we want to continue to use this operational reserve and not use it for those kinds of contingencies, use it for theater engagement, theater cooperation, in our case, state partnership program initiatives, those kinds of things, we've got to be able to involuntarily call our soldiers to active duty as a team, as a unit, to be able to do that. This modification of 12304 allows that. Initially, the proposal was that inside of the defense budget, the President's budget, was going to be the authority for 60,000 reservists to be called to duty during that budget year, and that those 60,000 soldiers would or reservists would have a funding line associated with them. So it was going to provide the authority, provide the funding, and that by way of it being inside of the President's budget, de facto, it was the President's consent to be able to call those reservists to active duty. I think that the Senate version, as I understand it, reduced that 60,000 to 10,000, and even at 10,000, at least it provides the opportunity for us to do the involuntary call-up.
And the reason it piqued my interest is because one of the issues that I've raised with almost everyone who comes before us that is National Guard and or active is when that issue arises is really the conflict between Title 10 and Title 32 status, which of course involves the two of you there. And something else that you said is also, I think, critical in understanding another issue. I think you also said that as the end strength comes down, and you were concerned about OCO funding because a lot of the operational status of the Guard is tied to basically OCO, our overseas operation. Pending, I think, an issue that is dear to both of your hearts is whether or not there will be the quote-unquote a fourth seat or the seat for the Guard on the Joint Chiefs. And it would seem that unless there is some understanding of all of us as to what exactly, like this change to Section 12304 would be one step, is that as we cut the end strength, or as maybe OCO starts to cut, which is anticipated by everyone's budget, then, and if you go back to a strategic kind of command for the National Guard, reserves is always Title 10, doesn't that call into question this whole debate that they're now having about whether or not the Guard should then have a quote-unquote seat with the joints because of the fact that if you go back to the pre-2005, 2006 time frame, the question would be how would that then be justified because most of your rank and file would technically be under state control because they would be Title 32 status.
Ma'am, actually, unless called by the President, we are in a Title 32 status, and the only exception for that, for the most part, are people who are mobilized and deployed downrange in Afghanistan and Iraq. And the response to Hurricane Irene, for instance, was totally done in a Title 32 state active duty status. I think the great news story for us in the National Guard is that we do now have a four-star general to represent our interests. And his responsibility by the Guard Empowerment Act is to provide counsel to the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs and to the Secretary of Defense on homeland matters and capabilities and requirements inside the National Guard. So I think that's a very positive step forward.
But that's not, but the purpose of him being an equal status on the Joint Chiefs is for, I would assume, equal status in terms of military decision-making as well.
He does not have a seat on the Joint Chiefs.
No, but there's an issue of whether he will have a seat. That's something that I think every one of your adjutant, your tags have written in every local newspaper about why we should have it.
Yes, ma'am, they have.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.